We're going over some commanders we think are better in the 99 of your decks.
I'm Mia, and I like charging my phone wirelessly.
I'm BZ, and I always forget my phone charger when I go on trips. We're the Nitpicking Nerds, sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., which means you could save 5% on your order when you go to checkout buying the same cards you were going to buy anyway by using code
NERDS
at checkout. So save 5% of your real money tax dollars.
We're also sponsored by Dragon Shield, best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
If you want to save 5% there, we're also using the code NERDS. You can use the link below to shop for the best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves. Yeah, we're keeping it simple. Also sponsored by Moxfield. There's an ad somewhere in the video. You will be unable to guess where it is because it will be so surprising. And happy birthday to everyone whose birthday that is today.
We all know that every legendary creature is able to be a commander, but not all of them are commander worthy. Here's some creatures that are better, in our opinion, in the 99. The first one being Lauren of the Third Path. She's a 2-1 with Vigi. When she ETBs, she does a Rex Sage effect, and if you tap her, you and an opponent each draw a card. There's a couple ways that people like to build her online, that mostly being blink and cantrips, but I think this better works as kind of its standalone creature in the 99 instead of a commander for an entire deck.
Yeah, she's a really good card, but I don't think she really screams commander to me. So if you're trying to play these blink cards like Eerie Interlude and Ephemerate where you want to get multiple triggers, maybe your commander can like contribute to that, I think you might want to go with Gilrain, Dune Protector instead. It's a creature that can pay 2 and tap and just flicker your creature until the end step. So you can either have it come back right away or the end step like I just said and have like maybe some abilities with it. It does a lot of things, and I think if I'm playing Blink, I'd rather my commander blink than be blinkable. Obviously, both is preferred, but I want to blink my other creatures. Rexage is cool. It's a cool fact, but I can put Lauren in the deck and then blink her anyway.
Yeah, I really think that if I were to have an effect like Lauren's in the command zone, I would really prefer something better than artifacts and enchantments. You know, like if it was like destroy a target permanent or something, that might be command zone worthy.
Oh yeah, I think so.
But just artifacts or enchantments just once and then maybe being able to blink it with something, I'm not really sure if that's build a deck around worthy.
Yeah, you could also go with Preston the Vanisher. He wants you to flicker things and he gives you copies of them that are illusions, and you can even sacrifice a bunch of illusions to start killing stuff.
I really also like the fact that this is exile with all of the illusions too. That's pretty nice. As I mentioned before, though, there's another way to build Lauren, and people use cantrips to build her. Those are cards like Cut a Deal and Mind's Eye. You want to draw a bunch of cards. But another way to build this would be with Quain, Itinerant Meddler. He's actually able to have everyone draw a card and then gain a life, but obviously you're going to be getting the most use out of those card draws.
Yeah, you want to punish people when they draw cards, or you want to like help yourself when they draw cards or draw cards with them. You know, even like Smothering Tithe is probably in this deck. Let's add a whole other color. Blue is way better at forcing people to draw. Quain lets everyone do it instead of just Lauren. We lose the Rex Sage part, but that is not integral to the deck, either the cantrips, everyone drawing cards deck.
Yeah, especially since the fact is it's only target opponent with Lauren. With Quain, you could actually do the entire table.
Yeah, we also have Shadrick Silverquill. Let's add black. Get the political thing moving. We can, like, Shadrick still gives out resources, but it's always how you want, and it's always to your benefit. Just kind of like Lauren is. You only activate it when it's good for you.
But moving on to a creature that BZ and I love to put in the 99, but can't really see making a deck out of, is Massacre Girl. When she ETBs, each other creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn, and when a creature dies this way, they all get another round of -1/-1 counters. So it's effectively a board wipe on a creature. And one of the ways you can actually build this is with aristocrats. You know, you want to make sure everyone's creatures dies, and then just getting triggers off of it, like with Massacre Worm or Grave Betrayal.
Massacre Girl's interesting because this one suffers from being a known quantity. If I know Massacre Girl is in your command zone, I'm going to be looking at the board state at all times to determine, will this board state die? Will my creatures die if you play Massacre Girl? So maybe people hold back their 1/1s. Maybe people hold up ways to stop you. I feel like it's better off if you can toolbox it, find it, put it in this aristocrat deck that's already playing this stuff. So I would rather play like Yahenni, Undying Partisan. She still cares about when my opponent's creatures die, still works with all that stuff. Massacre Girl is going to be great. That's fine. And then you can make her indestructible, wipe the board some other way, and just kill people.
I like the fact that it also has sacrifice on the creature itself for no extra cost. So it's not like you have to keep paying for Massacre Girl to keep coming up and just getting those death triggers.
Yeah, Sir Conrad's another way you could go. It mills everybody, and then whenever anything happens, whenever a creature goes anywhere, basically, you deal 1 to all of them. There's so many ways to build that. Whereas Massacre Girl's like, yeah, you can slow the game down and wipe the board, but it doesn't come with that payoff on it. I'd really love a payoff.
Yeah, I love the fact that Sir Conrad is when it's put into the graveyard from anywhere. So if they do have to discard their hand or something, they will get the triggers.
Yeah, feel free to loop Massacre Girl in these decks, but I don't know if she's the commander I would choose.
Another way you can build Massacre Girl is with Assassins. This is very flavorful. You'll have Kiku, Knight's Power, and Thorn of the Black Rose to get your Kindred deck really going. And one of the best ways to do it, in mono black at least, is Mary, the Killing Quill. When a creature an opponent controls dies, exile it with a hit counter. Assassins, Mercenaries, and Rogues you control have Death Touch, and when they hit, you can remove a hit counter from a card that player owns in exile, and you draw a card and create 2 treasure tokens. So this is actually pretty thematic with the fact that Massacre Girl is an assassin, and it also has to do with death triggers, which we're trying to, really go with the assassin theme.
Yeah, you rack up the death triggers, you have Massacre Girl. She's not the best synergy, but you 100% play one of the best assassins and commander in the assassins deck, so that totally makes sense. Also, Ramses, Assassin Lord. He pumps assassins when players lose the game. If they were attacked, perfect. You win the game. Now it's just like, great, Massacre Girl, get in there. A little bit of board wipe on a creature in the type that I care about most.
I think it's really interesting to see the condition of if this XYZ happened, you win the game on a commander too. That's very sneaky and assassin-esque.
Much more flavorful, much more cool to build around, right?
Yeah, and the fact that blue has a lot more instants and stuff, it really adds to that thematic effect. But the next one is something that you often don't see in the command zone, but you can build it a couple ways if it's there. It's Kiki-Jiki Mirror Breaker. Kiki-Jiki is 2 red for a 2/2 that has haste, and if you tap it, you create a token of a target non-legendary creature you control, except it has haste, and you sack it at the beginning of the next end step. So this is a combo card with a bunch of creatures like Felidar Guardian, and you often don't see it in the command zone.
Yeah, because mono red restricts you a lot. There's not really too many ways to go infinite with Kiki, which is the main thing people do with him. So you see him alongside blue and white a lot, not so much in red, where you just have Zealous Conscripts.
Even though this is mostly used as a combo card, people sometimes like to use it as a commander for their goblin decks. I think there are better options though, one of them being Krenko Mob Boss. One of our commenters loves to talk about this. He taps, he makes a bunch of goblins. I feel like this is one of the hallmark commanders of goblins.
It is. You could go classic with it, or you could go a little weirder. You can go Muxus Goblin Grandy, who puts goblins from the top of your deck into play, and then just kind of gets huge when you attack. I've seen Muxus. It's very explosive. It can do things like Kiki-Jiki can do them. I think it's a little bit more flavorful. My Goblin Commander, I would want a Goblin payoff on there, right?
Yeah, I think that either way you want to flood the board, so whether that's a bunch of little 1/1s or actually from its deck itself, it does it a lot better and faster than with Kiki-Jiki.
And let me tell you right now, you're going to get so much hate playing Kiki-Jiki in the command zone, that's probably just not even worth it. I know. Even if you say it's not that Kiki-Jiki deck, I know you have Zealous Conscripts in there. I'm going to kill you if all else is equal.
Yeah, that brings us to our next theme, theft. The Kiki-Jiki decks that have Coercive Recruiter and Zealous Conscripts in it usually revolve around theft, but I think there's better options than just mono red for theft. One of the commanders best for theft is Marchesa the Black Rose. When a creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it dies, you return it to your battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. Speaking of your control, that's what's interesting.
Yeah, you steal their stuff, put counters on it, and then when it dies under your control, you kind of get it permanently, which is really weird wording on this card, but it ends up working out for theft decks. We also have Yasova Dragonclaw, which is more of an active treason. Steal stuff temporarily, but you can make a ton of big giant plays with it, fling and all this stuff, pump creatures, and take this, get extra combat. It's all this different stuff. Next up is a Nitpicking Nerd's favorite, but not necessarily in the command zone. It's Drana Linvala, 4-mana, 3/4 flyer. She shuts off the activated abilities of your opponent's things, and then you get the activated abilities of those creatures on Drana Linvala. Super cool, but what is there to even build around here?
Yeah, I don't think it's really pushing you in a specific theme, which is why I think it's better in the 99 than as a commander itself.
What are the themes that people usually play?
One of the themes that people like to build this deck around is life gain. That's with cards like Drana's Emissary and Sanguine Bond. However, I think we can get better cards and commanders for this in general. One of them being Asterion the Decadent. He's a 4 black and white for a 4/4 Death Touch lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, you choose one. You can either feed and target opponent loses life equal to the amount of life they lost this turn, or friends, you gain life equal to the amount of life you've gained this turn. I think this is a lot more thematic and has a lot more usefulness to the life gain sub-theme than Drana Linvala really does.
Drana Linvala doesn't do anything with life. It doesn't gain you life. It doesn't stop them from gaining life. It doesn't trigger on life gain. At least Asterion doubles your life gain, or if you're playing those spells are like, you lose half your life. It doubles that, and then they just lose. That's way scarier, way cooler, way more thematic. It's really like, I'm not sure why Drannel Vala would go in a life gain deck, but I also think Karlov of the Ghost Council is another option, because this is like the beatdown route. Whenever you gain life with like Soul Warden and stuff, he gets huge, he attacks for 1,000,000, you can kill people with commander damage, or you can use his removal option right on the card and just exile stuff.
I also like the fact that he's only 2 mana to get down, and then you might be able to actually have a Voltron commander out of it. That's pretty funny.
Or you can go the stacks route, which is kind of where I thought this would lead, with like Grand Abolisher, Drannith Magistrate, every other stacks and tax piece you could possibly think of. But I think there's even some more efficient commanders in that route, like Lavinia, Azorius Renegade. She got the like casting free spells tax where you can't really do it, and then she shuts off like cheating mana too. And then there's also Lysa, Shroud of Dusk. This taxes people whenever they play a spell at all, and it makes it so that once she's down and beating and hard to remove with commander attacks, their like options are really limited on what they can actually do.
Yeah, I like the fact that Lysa has lifelink on her, so if you do have to be casting her multiple times, then you can gain that life back, and it's not as tough to keep casting her.
Yeah, it gives you the advantage because she has lifelink.
But if we want to talk about little guys in the command zone, we're going to be talking about Skrelv Defector Mite. He's a 1/1 with Toxic 1, he can't block, and if you pay white or 2 life and you tap him and you choose a color, another target creature you control gains Toxic 1 and hexproof from that color and also can't be blocked by creatures that color. So one of the routes is making all of your creatures have infect and making little guys. I think that's like a pretty important part of this.
That's part of the theme. That's like one of the themes you want to do. So you're going to see like Skrelv's Hive and Infested Flesh Cutter. I think you're just kind of missing out by sticking yourself in mono white. That is not the main infect color. It's one of the like secondary colors. But how about Vishgrai as the Doom Hive? He gets bigger for each poison counter they have, which may or may not matter, but you're making mites every time. And he's got Menace and Toxic himself.
You can also choose Rhea Evora, Bane of Bladehold. You can choose in a couple different ways. You can choose the creature as the card states and make a bunch of little mites, or you can choose a different creature that isn't attacking and let the damage of the bigger creature go through.
Yeah, you don't always have to like lose out on your biggest attacker. You could just choose Rhea Evor to deal no damage, even if she just came out if you don't feel like doing it right away. Or you could just choose your 10-10, make 10 mites, and then you got a bunch of little guys. So there's like a ton of different options with it. More so than Skrelv, I think. And you still get your little guys.
But if you want a Phyrexian Matters deck, there's so many cool cards you can play, like Phyrexian Censor and Essence of Orthodoxy. But I don't think Skrelv is the best commander for this, especially since he is mono white, and that is one of the support colors for Phyrexians.
Yeah, how about Brimaz, where Phyrexians are dying, we're proliferating. That can include poison if you feel like going for that. Or just like make the incubate tokens for value. I like Brimaz. He's like a lot chunkier. Skrelv really dies out, like really quick. I mean, I know he can give evasion to other things, but I think past, a couple turns, he can really lose relevance.
Yeah, and I also really like Elishnorn, the Flip Saga one, because she's going to be making a lot of tokens on the other side when you flip her, and then she'll just flip back. It's really hard to actually kill her.
Yeah, she makes your Phyrexians huge and hit for like tons of damage, and it just blows everything up. Like, what better way? Like, at least Skrelv has no real way to pay off Phyrexians. It just is a Phyrexian, and it like has Phyrexian words on it. But Elishnorn actually pays you off for having Phyrexians. That's what makes me want to build this deck. Let's hop on over to my favorite commander on this list, but still not one I'd recommend necessarily. It's Grist, the Hunger Tide. This is the most popular one on our list. This is a 3 mana, 3 loyalty. As long as he's on the battlefield, he's a 1/1 insect, which isn't that relevant because he's in your command zone. But you +1 to make an insect, mill a card. You can repeat this if you mill an insect. -2, you sack a creature, destroy a creature, or planeswalker. And -5, each opponent loses life equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. This is a pretty sweet card. And we're not going to be talking about insects. We are going to be talking about Moxfield.com, because Moxfield.com is the way to build any deck you want. Even an insect deck with Grist as the commander, you could sort, tag, and price all your cards accordingly to how you want the deck to be built. You could say, these are my insect payoffs. These are my insect enablers. Boom.
I also love the fact that when you change your commander on Moxfield.com, for instance, if you had Grist as your commander and you do something mono green, it'll actually tell you all of the cards that aren't legal in that deck anymore. It'll highlight them in bright red and just say, hey, you're not in black anymore. These aren't good. So it makes it really easy for you to take those out.
Yeah, versus redacted websites. It's going to say, you can't do that. You got to build a whole nother deck and do things that are really inconvenient and annoying. No. Give me Moxfield. But like I said, we're not talking about the insect theme with Grist. I think Grist is a pretty cool insect commander because there really aren't that many insect commanders. Let's talk about Mill, where I don't think Grist is like that great. This card is like Sayer Wayfinder, Altar of Dementia. You're going to fill your own graveyard and then profit off of it. Grist is not good at filling the graveyard. I mean, he only pluses pluses once per turn to mill 1, maybe 2 cards per turn, which is not that effective.
Yeah, I've seen people say something about like Agatha's Soul Cauldron and Grist being a combo because it counts as a insect in the graveyard, but I think that there are better commanders for this.
But like, he's in your command zone, so when is he going to be in your graveyard?
Yeah, so you wouldn't want to send him there. So one of them being Izoni Thousand-Eyed. I like the fact that this is like card draw in the command zone. That's always super powerful. The fact that you're making insects also, so it is pretty on theme to Grist, and you're getting those sacrifice triggers because you could do it for just black and green.
The problem with Grist is that he's a planeswalker too. He's not going to stay on the battlefield for that long. He's easily attackable, easily removable, depending on the board state. So Izoni at least gives you a more tangible payoff. You got 6 creatures in your graveyard, here's 6 1/1s right away. I'll sack them later to draw cards. Grist is like, hey, you got to plus me twice and have a bunch of stuff in there, and then I'll make them lose life. But it's so predictable, or, visible. It's very on board. I don't think it's like you're not going to catch anybody by surprise with a Grist ultimate.
I also think that with planeswalkers, people fear them more than the actual creatures, even if their abilities aren't as scary, because they're just like, you can attack them as a player too, so.
Yeah, I feel like as soon as Grist dies too, he dies once or twice, that just feels bad to recast. It's not worth 7 mana, that's for sure. You can also go Sidisi Brood Tyrant. It's got more colors, but it's got the mill theme built right into it. Whenever you mill a creature, you get 2/2 zombie.
But if you want to go with a graveyard sub-theme, something BZ really likes to do, and you're going to be playing cards like Life from the Loam and Dread Return, I think there are better options for a commander than Grist, one of them being old stick figures. Whenever you cast a spell, you reveal top cards from the top of the library until you reveal X creature cards, and you put all of those in the graveyard, and his power and toughness are equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. I think that's really fun, the fact that you can kind of control how many creatures you put in. Like if you're running low on cards or something, you can only do them for like a couple, and if you have a lot of creature cards in your graveyard already, you'll still have those giant stats.
Yeah, you can build up. It fills your graveyard for you. It fills your graveyard faster than Grist, and it's like a little bit of a threat when you can give it evasion and stuff from your command zone. Make it a 21/21, you can kill somebody. I think also Marin of Clan Toth, maybe you've heard of it, one of the premier go-to graveyard commanders ever. You get experience, you reanimate things. She doesn't fill your graveyard, but she certainly pays you off for it in like a healthy way.
Especially with the fact that experience counters don't go away. But if we're talking about commanders with a lot of utility, but not a lot of direction, that might be Campbell, Console of Allocation. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, they lose 2 and you gain 2. That's pretty good for like overall life gain and life lost, but I don't think it really makes for a commander.
It doesn't. There's not really a way to take advantage of it. You can't force your opponents to cast all their non-creature spells, but you could certainly build a life gain deck with like Sanguine Bond and Bloodchief Ascension and all that stuff. But I think Karlov Ghost Council is probably still a better option. It gives you the payoff and lets you remove things. So Karlov's pulling double duty here as alternative guy.
Alluro Ageless Ascetic is also a great one. More card draw in the command zone, which is always amazing. And the fact is, if he's in the command zone, you gain 2 life.
Yeah, always. Forever. They can't stop it.
But just like people were building Drenna and Linvala in a Staxy way, people also like to build Campbell in that way because it has no real direction. That's with cards like Aura of Silence and Blind Obedience.
Like, oh, they think I'll just punish my opponents for doing anything. And that's fair, but Lysa is our girl. We just talked about her. She's amazing at stacks. Why not tax them for every spell they cast, period, and then we'll gain the life back when she attacks? Or the other card on this list, Lysa, Forgotten Archangel, she stops the opponent's creatures from dying, so that's like a different type of tax, and then your creatures dying come back to your hand, so you can totally put a bunch of hate bears and all this stuff, because it makes sense. If the board gets wiped or they go away, they just come back to your hand, and then their stuff does not come back.
Forgotten Archangel shuts off a lot of decks.
My decks.
Yeah, I've played it in the 99 before, and it's really powerful, so to think of it in the command zone, that's just pretty brutal.
Let's get to our next card. This is Mangara the Diplomat. This commander doesn't have a lot going on. When your opponents double spell or attack you with 2 things or a planeswalker, you get to draw a card. That's cool. I like drawing cards, but I don't know what separates this card from the rest as like, oh, this deserves to be my commander. I need to have this every game. Having access to it every game is fine, but if you're building like a life gain deck, for example, with Cleric Class and Aetherflux Reservoir, like so many Mangara players are, let's try to pay off the life gain a little bit more instead of just having a card that says lifelink on it, like the Gaffer. Whenever every end step, if you gain 3 life, you draw a card. Now we're drawing cards and gaining life, and we're paying everything off. That works super good with like food tokens too.
Yeah, I feel like with Mangara, you're not really gaining a lot of life in the long run because it's like, attack me, I need cards. Oh wait, I'm gaining life. So it like kind of equals out a little bit, which, we just want to soar above people's life totals with ours. Celestine the Living Saint is a little bit better with this. Still mono white, but you can actually reanimate creatures based on the amount of life you've gained that turn. I think that's a really cool way to take mono white.
That's so cool. The graveyard, reanimating, life gain, it ties it all together. It feels like a white-black card, but it is not. There's another way to go with Mangara, apparently, according to the EDH rec, and this is Planeswalkers. I guess Mangara says if you attack my Planeswalker with 2 things, I get to draw a card. That is the loosest synergy I can imagine, and I don't really want them attacking my Planeswalkers with 2 or more things. That feels like a bad situation to be in. But these decks play like Oath of Gideon and Arena Rector to go tutor up the best Planeswalkers and make sure they enter with extra loyalty. But if you're playing Planeswalkers, we have, even in mono white, 2 really good options. Jiru with Eyes Open tutors a Planeswalker and then prevents damage dealt to your Planeswalkers. I'd much rather draw that than hope to draw a Planeswalker with Mangara, especially if I'm playing. Like, Planeswalkers is weak enough. Just find your Planeswalkers so you can get your game plan going.
Planeswalkers are pretty fragile, honestly. And the fact is, with this Commander Jiru, it's like, oh, are you going to kill it? I'll just go tutor another Planeswalker. That's pretty scary.
Yeah, you can flicker him or reanimate him to, like, get extra bonus out of it. Lae'zel, Vlaakith's Champion. This, like, is a peer, but it's color shifted into white. You can choose a background also if you want to stay white. That's totally fine. Or dip into any other color, double the number of Planeswalkers you have access to. And now whenever you plus them or they enter, they have extra loyalty. It's like a Oath of Gideon in the command zone.
I like the fact that you can actually just switch out backgrounds in general, and then you could just switch out, like, full decks. You can build a bunch of decks around Lae'zel. That's
you can
pretty
build
cool.
5 50-card decks, each with a different background.
As you can see, not every legendary creature is created equal, but if you want to see some really awesome new legendary creatures, you should actually check out our precons video right about here for Lost Caverns of Ixalan. There are some really spicy new cards in there.
Tip of the day, taking it from a classic game show host, spay and neuter your pets, people.